What if your emotional baggage became a weird little Muppet creature and followed you around in the woods? Welcome back. Can I tell you guys a fun fact I learned today? You guys know Mick Garris, beloved Mick Garris. He was actually one of the zombies in Michael Jackson's Thriller music video. I think that is so cool. But, anyways, this week we are still talking camping related horror. And today's movie is not necessarily a camping related movie, but it does involve a retreat, which in my mind is camp adjacent, glamping for mental health in this one, if you will. Today's movie is The Cleanse from 2016, a campy little weirdo horror comedy that you definitely need to check out. But first, finally saw the back rooms, guys. It was a harrowing experience. Honestly, I didn't expect to be as terrified as I was watching it. I just don't feel scared very often, very much anymore, and liminal horror doesn't really do it for me, but this one had a clear story. It was very well thought out, very, very good effects. All of the rooms were so spooky and scary. I don't like imagining existing in a place like that. And if you've seen it, you know what happens to Bobby's character specifically. That part made my skin crawl. I started catching up on Kane Parsons' original videos for my channel, and the movie was just as interesting and intriguing as the short. So anyways, before we get into today's movie, The Cleanse, go ahead and give the Get Weird podcast a 5-star rating, a review, a comment, a like, a follow, whatever, wherever. The Cleanse is directed by Bobby Miller, and it's the story of a heartbroken man who attends a spiritual retreat only to discover the course releases more than everyday toxins and traumatic experiences. A lot of familiar faces in this one. Specifically Queen Anjelica Huston. She is so silly in this little film. We also have Johnny Galecki, who the world knows now as Leonard Hofstadter from Big Bang Theory. Oliver Platt, who's been in literally everything. And also our horror king, Kyle Gallner, in one of his most underrated roles. This little cast makes up a mighty underrated film. It's a dark comedy about dealing with your shit, literally. So let's talk about it. The Cleanse is an indie horror comedy that takes the idea of facing your demons way more literally than most movies usually dare to. The story follows Paul, a guy whose life is just kind of a mess after a devastating breakup. He signs up for a self-help retreat that promises to wash away all of his emotional baggage. After being forced to drink some truly horrific cleanse concoctions, he discovers that his negativity hasn't disappeared at all. It's now been transformed into a strange little creature that he immediately throws up. As it turns out, everyone at the retreat has their own little emotional support monster. They just lurk around, they follow around, they're actually rather cute. And what starts off as a quirky, almost very cute concept, it gradually becomes much darker as the creatures grow larger and more dangerous, and Paul forms a bond with his creature and fellow attendee Maggie, making it increasingly difficult to accept the retreat's goal: destroying these physical manifestations of trauma. So if you're not picking up what I'm laying down, these people go to this retreat and throw up these little creatures that they're forced to take care of and deal with and possibly even love and form true human bonds with. and then they have to kill them. But the film does a surprisingly good job at balancing like gross out creature effects with the dark humor and genuine heart, all while exploring grief, guilt, and all of the things we carry around long after we should have let them go. And by the end, Paul and Maggie learn that holding on to their pain only allows it to grow into something much uglier. Beneath all the monster vomit and self-help satire, The Cleanse is ultimately a sweet story about healing and moving forward and realizing that sometimes your inner demons are better left in the past. It's odd and very charming, and it's exactly the kind of offbeat horror that has some genuine rewatchability. It's such a stupid little movie. I loved it. Alex has not seen it yet, and I know that we both like Kyle Gallner a lot, and I think that'll be a selling point for him. But I watched this back all the way in 2016 when it was released. I've seen it a few times since, and it definitely holds up, and I'm excited to watch it again. One of the disappointing things about this movie, though, is that Chloe Sevigny was supposed to co-star, and I think that would have been the cherry on the cake here. She was recently in a film called Magic Farm that it just flew so far under the radar, guys. If you like a super offbeat weird comedy drama, like check out Magic Farm. It's so good. I believe Alex Wolf's in it. It's a fantastic one, but I think The Cleanse would have been a perfect little film for her. I love and adore everything she does. Total icon, but I digress. This is actually movie 2 of 3 in Bobby Miller's trilogy titled The Trilogy of Tears. Now, this is a quote from Bobby Miller from his website. I will link it somewhere. Quote, "For those who know, the Trilogy of Tears was a name coined to represent my 3 films. The Cleanse, End Times, and Tub all share the same DNA, mostly because they feature grown men crying. Both of my short films are included with the release, thus you'll own the Trilogy of Tears." Now, I love when a director continues a thought or a theme throughout pieces of media, most notably Lars von Trier's Depression trilogy, which is technically 4 films, but whatever, Antichrist, Melancholia, and then Nymphomaniac Part 1 and 2. If you watched this movie and thought the creature effects feel oddly realistic, that's because the production leaned heavily into practical creature work instead of relying entirely on CGI. And I really like that a lot. You guys know I am a huge champion for practical effects over here. The creature effect artists were specifically highlighted as part of the film's production team, and that was very nice to see. So, anyways, that's The Cleanse, a movie that asks the very important question: what if all of your emotional baggage crawled out of your body and started following you around like a weird little swamp creature? You know, it's a strange blend of horror and comedy, a little creature feature, and self-help satire. But it all comes together into a surprisingly heartfelt story about grief and healing and learning when it's finally time to let go. If you haven't seen this one, I definitely recommend giving it a shot, especially if you're a fan of offbeat indie horror and you like practical effects. It's one of the movies that I think flew completely under the radar, but it did stick with me for a long time after I watched it. Plus, any film that manages to make puking up a monster feel emotional deserves a little respect. And in saying all of that, thank you so much for being here for another week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being weird. Stay strange, stay spooky, and remember, therapy is expensive, but it's still probably preferable to vomiting up a manifestation of your deepest emotional trauma. Sayonara, suckers.